I love to read. I like to read, and I don't like to read just because, you know, reading is fundamental, but I like to kind of break down where a person's mind is, or what a person is thinking, or how a person is feeling, or why even a person is feeling that particular way. I even like to put my own spin on things by kind of altering, you know, the entire theme, tone, and setting of the entire story, literature, poem, whatever it is that I'm reading. I want to figure out what is really at core. And it's kind of like discernment when you're listening to what a person is saying, but you're really trying to listen to what a person is just saying. Kind of get the underlying meaning of what's really being said, or even why it's being said, the energy or the spirit in which the person is coming from, and why is this spirit and why is this energy showing up right now, and why is it presenting itself for you, to you, and what can you do with that. With that being said, I was reading a poem, okay, by a poet, a black poet, who goes by the name of Phillis Wheatley Peters. And Phillis Wheatley Peters was enslaved. She died at a very, very old age, they say by herself. But she is very much popularized for a lot of her amazing poetic works. You know what I'm saying? Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters, she was able to read, she was able to write, she was very affluent, very well spoken. So a lot of her poems, you know, they went viral. And so I took one of her poems and I decided that I wanted to do like a little bit of a literary analysis, some critical thinking, you know, just really exercising my brain and diving deep into a short poem. And I just want to share with you guys just a piece of my thoughts, and you can share with me in the comments how you feel, if you feel any type of way, your critical analysis on this poem. So let's do it. Eve, your occultist. If you haven't, you guys, please go ahead and subscribe, comment, like, share, hit the notification bell so that you can be reminded every time I post. Alright, you guys, so ignore my laptop light. I took my notes on my laptop, so I'm going to be looking back and forth, talking to you guys, just pretty much giving you my thoughts on this piece. And I do have me something to drink, so if you have not, you guys, go ahead and get you something to drink. I have me a green juice immunity, pineapple, kale, ginger boost, because I'm trying to get slim. Just a reminder, you guys, these are my thoughts. This is not the real meaning or the real way that the poet was feeling. This is not what she was trying to convey. Even if it was what she was trying to convey, this is merely coming from spirit. This is coming from my own critical analysis. I don't want anyone to take it personal and get your panties in a bunch. We're just having fun. And let's get to it. So the poem that we're going to be going over today is called On Being Brought Back from Africa to America, again by the poet Phillis Wheatley Peters. It is a octet, so it has 8 lines. So it's really short, but we're going to turn this into a very big deal again, okay? Now, here we go. "'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my benighted soul to understand that there's a God, that there's a Savior too. Once our redemption neither sought nor knew. Some view our sable race with scornful eye. Their color is a diabolic dye. Remember, Christians, Negroes, black as Cain, may be revined and join the angelic train." So, super sweet, super short. So we're going to be looking at this from a couple of different lenses, like maybe 3. And then I might try and dabble into some other lenses just to give it a little bit more of a perspective. So we're going to look at this from an authorial lens, where we're going to be looking at the author's background, where the author came from that could have influenced this type of poem or influenced her to write this poem. We're also going to be looking at this from a post-colonialism lens, where we're going to look at how the effects of colonialism may have inspired her or affected her or caused her to write this type of poem, how it may have influenced her to write this poem. And we're going to utilize some new criticism lenses, where I'm going to be giving my perspective based off where we are today, and, you know, of course, why I feel like she wrote the poem, I guess. I don't know. So the words that I chose for the tone of text or the tone of this poem would be grateful, reminiscent, nostalgic, and pensive. And I was really on the spectrum when utilizing the words like reminiscent and nostalgic, because when you're thinking of the words reminiscent and nostalgic, it's always like coming from like a positive perspective, where a person is like reminiscing on like their past. Well, I don't want to necessarily, reminiscent can be neutral, because a person can reminisce on bad things the same exact way they can reminisce on good things. Nostalgic it's kind of like just being, it's like the opposite of deja vu, where you've been here before, where except you're going back into a memory, and it's kind of like it has like this feeling to it, which kind of feels good. So again, I was kind of like on the spectrum when using those words, but pensive. So as the poet is using her memories of her homeland to teach other Negroes like her to be Christian, which is like the underlying message of this entire poem. She's telling other Negroes like her, you know, you're gonna have to clean up, you're gonna have to wash up. The ways of our ancestors was horrible, you know, and the only way to get better, you know, is by joining the angelic train. Okay, now looking at this from a post-colonialism lens, we understand that Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters, and again, we do say her name with reverence and veneration because she is an ancestor. We do understand that Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters was enslaved, and she was an educated slave. Now, even though she was an educated slave, she could read and write, she was still affected by the mishandling and the erasure of our people's culture. Now, again, if we go ahead and we look at line 1, we see that Miss Phillis refers to her homeland, Africa, as a pagan land. Now, when we think of the word pagan, we're looking at something that's non-religious, or we're looking at practices that worship gods that are not pertaining to the top 3 religions, which is Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And she set the tone for this again by using the word mercy in line 1. Now, where she said, "'Twas mercy that brought me from my pagan land." Now, mercy is what's given from a superior to an offender, or when a person is seeking mercy, it's kind of like they're begging for some sort of relief. They're begging someone from who has more power or authority, someone who has the power or authority to give them mercy. They're begging for mercy. So it's like when it comes to mercy and begging, for me, it kind of has like the same energy, but they're looking for some sort of compassion. They're looking for some sort of relief. And we see in line 1 and 2 some post-colonial brainwashing surrounding religion and God, as Miss Phillips again believes that her soul was benighted. And to be benighted, or the definition of the word benighted, means to be morally ignorant. So she found herself to be morally ignorant before she received mercy and was freed from her pagan land. So let us continue. And through that, I'm sure she again viewed now, okay, where she is in the first 2 lines, as being freed from her pagan land, as being rescued. Again, because she kind of like, it's kind of like the tone in which she used the word mercy, as if she was being rescued from Africa, from her pagan land, as if she was being rescued. And again, just like begging, you know, mercy and rescue kind of walk hand in hand. They kind of have the same energy, because a person who needs to be rescued is looking for mercy, and a person who needs mercy or is looking for mercy is looking to be rescued from something. So they kind of hold the same energy. So again, this is my feeling. This is just my analysis. This isn't what she was feeling, so don't take it personal. But for me, Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters felt as if she was rescued from Africa. And the reason why she felt that she was rescued from Africa is because now her chances of going to hell, because she is now a Christian and she's been refined by the angelic train, is slim to none, according to Christian ideologies. And as we look at line 3, she does quote that there's a God and there's a Savior too. And she quoted this as if she was taught something that she just never knew, that she just did not know. But if you continue to read the poem, you find in line 4 that she didn't know, because she said, "Once I redemption neither sought nor knew." And what she's saying is she never knew the God, or the God that she was taught. So how could she seek him, or how could she follow a God that she never knew? So once I redemption never sought nor knew, but it was until my redemption I knew to seek God. I knew about God, so I know to share this information amongst other Negroes. And she's telling these other Negroes, you know, may you be refined and join the angelic train. Now, this for me, of course, is a form of fear mongering, because she's insinuating that she was dirty, that she was a heathen, because excuse me, heathenism and pagan practices, you know, religious people kind of walk hand in hand for religious people. So what she's doing is she's telling the other Negroes, you know, we have to be cleansed. We have to become Christians. You know, the ways of our ancestors, our homeland was pagan. It was demonic. You know, we got to clean ourselves up, and that is a form of fear mongering. But let's get into it. Let's dive a little bit deep. Now, knowing what we already know about slavery and its effects on black people and post-colonial brainwashing and this hyper-religious POV, it's more than likely a result of the Willie Lynch syndrome. And if you know, you know. The making of a slave. You take a person and you walk them and talk them and teach them and beat them how to be a slave. Sometimes they become grateful, and this is in fact a Stockholm syndrome by way of colonial and post-colonial gaslighting and brainwashing, where the abused idolizes the abuser, in this case out of fear of harsh consequences. I'm about to switch things up a little bit, and some of you might feel some type of way. Go ahead and take a sip of your drink, because it's about to get real icky in here. When I read this poem, it doesn't sound like Miss Phillis was compelled or even forced. It's almost like she's expressing some sort of gratefulness, and like I said, the tone of this poem was very grateful, some sort of gratitude towards her. Like I said, before I did any major research into Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters, I had already came to the understanding that she had some sort of a close relationship with somebody in the house. Okay, she could read and she could write. We already know that that was very much illegal for a lot of slaves, but let's continue here. Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters was brought from West Africa, Gambia, to America at the age of 8, meaning quite a few things. Her real name isn't Phillis Wheatley Peters, and her language, her first language, is not English. So she had to learn these things. These things had to be taught to her. She had to be given a name. And we know during slavery, with all the stories, with all the history, the word of mouth, we already know how these things happened. But again, what kind of got me was the tone of this story. Now, when I think of most people who have coming from Africa, being brought from Africa to America stories, it's always ground standing. You know, it's always headstrong. It's always a fight back. When I think of like little stories, I think of like Kunta Kinte or High John the Conqueror. But here in this poem, Miss Phillis doesn't write about her memories of Africa or how Africa was even beautiful. What she does is she refers to Africa as a pagan land. And most religious people view paganism or pagan people or pagan anything that has to do with pagan as demonic. So she's not writing about her love for her homeland. She's pretty much in agreement with YT beliefs that it's pagan, it's demonic, and the people, of course, from this pagan land have to be pagan as well, right? Meaning that they are also demonic, and they have to be clean. And we see that when she said in her poem, "May you be refined and join the angelic train." What she did was she gave the idea that the land that she came from is not godly, thus neither are the people that come from that land. And it kind of put me in a different perspective, and this is us switching into, you know, different lenses. Did she get brainwashed or did she conform? Now, do not trip, okay? Did she get brainwashed or did she conform? I know that's a crazy question to ask when it comes to slavery, but let's put it into perspective. To come from Africa and to not know the language, to, you know, having to be taught the language, however it was enforced, to even obtaining the skill of reading and writing, when that was again completely illegal for many American born slaves. Like, they would have such harsh consequences, and we all know what they were like if they were caught reading and writing. Indicates to me that Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters had some form of insensitive flattery to avoid harm and to obtain skills, again, such as reading and writing. Also, I did more research into Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters, just reading her story and just knowing what I know about my people and just having ancestral knowledge come back to me. I do think they had her red wrenching. I do. And we're gonna get into why I think that. Now, Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters says that it was mercy who brought her from her pagan land, Africa, and taught her benighted soul to understand. And we already went over what pagan meant and what the word benighted means. So you should be able to tie this together and follow me where I'm going now. Now, we know mercy cannot tangibly move someone from their land and teach them a particular religion. So if the pagan land is Africa, you know, I'm pretty sure we all caught on by now, it's Africa, and Africa is tangible, it actually exists. Mercy must be tangible too. So what is mercy? And we know that mercy is tangible simply by looking at the title, and the title is On Being Brought from Africa to America. So we know exactly what mercy is. So we know what mercy is, we know that it's tangible. She just used a non-tangible word for it. Who is mercy? Well, who brought mercy and then brought mercy and her back to the Americas? We know who. We all know who. Okay, let us continue. So what we can see is Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters showing a deep appreciation for her enslaver. You could also suggest that maybe her life as a slave was better than her life as, you know, just a woman in Africa. Now, I know before you guys scream at me and say, why would you say something like that? But we're going to look at this from different lenses. Let's look at it from a feminist lens. So what was life like for women in West Africa during that time? Was it safe? Even though the climate might have been extremely harsh for her, there were the climates different for her here in America. Do not attack me. Also, just from a new criticism lens, and I know you guys are going to feel some type of way with these different lenses, like, girl, what in the hell are you talking about right now? I have seen way more than I can count some fresh from Africa Africans come from their country, wherever it is in Africa, to America and literally conform and take on, you know, YT ideologies just to be accepted by mercy. I have seen it. I have seen it. I have seen it. But that's just, you know. And I did do some research again. I'm going to go ahead and read to you just a little bit of information on Phillis Wheatley Peters, just so you guys have a clear idea of who she is and where she came from and how she was brought over to America. It'll give you a good perspective of the white people who did enslave her and how they felt towards her and why I thought she was a red rancher, or why she was red wrenched. So, Susanna Wheatley, wife of prominent Boston tailor John Wheatley, purchased a slender, frail female child for trifle. Because the captain of the slave ship believed that the wife was terminally ill, he wanted to gain at least a small profit before she died. A Wheatley relative later reported that the family surmised the girl, who was of slender frame and evidently suffering from a change of climate, nearly naked. Well, I'm pretty sure if she was brought the fuck off of a boat from Africa, she was going to be very fresh. She's a child, you know, nearly naked, of course. Who knows what was going on with her? Okay. With no covering other than a quantity of dirty carpet around her, to be about 7 years old from the circumstances of shedding from her teeth. After discovering the girl's preciousness, the Wheatleys, including their son Nathaniel and their daughter Mary, did not entirely excuse Wheatley from her domestic duties, so she still had to work, but taught her to read and write. So we can see that the family members, of course the children, I guess, had friendship in her. You know how things go. Kids are going to be kids, and they taught her how to read and write. And soon she was immersed in the Bible, astronomy, geography, history, and British literature. And the reason why I say that she was a victim of red wrenching is because of the fact that she had this opportunity. Okay, one house she was brought in, she had this opportunity when a lot of slaves did not have this opportunity, and this was surely an opportunity, especially back then. Now, again, that's just looking at it from a feminist lens, like what was really going on. And I want to be monetized, so I'm not about to say too tough much. Okay, so going back just a bit, if we go back and look at lines 1 and 2, where she said, "'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land and taught my benighted soul to understand," we can safely assume, of course, that Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters is a highly religious woman. I mean, you have to be super religious to deny your homeland of the beauty of its own spiritual systems and take on the complete identity of your enslavers and even write poetry about it. I think that's amazing. And essentially what Miss Phillis Wheatley Peters is doing is informing other Negroes, you know, like, again, you know, our ancestors, they were pagan, they were demons. You're a demon, and you're going to be a demon. You're going to be dirty. You're going to be dark until you get clean. And the reason why I say it like that is because when you look at the words that she chose to describe our race, it kind of gives that feeling. It kind of gives that tone. And some of the words that she chose were sable, Negroes, black as Cain. Now in line 9 she says, remember Christian, Negroes, black as Cain. It's how she refers to us. Now listen, she says in lines 10 and 11, some view our, and it's not lines 10 and 11, I don't know why my notes is really messing up the entire order of the damn poem. But as she says in the last couple of lines, some view our sable race with scornful eye. Now, the way she used sable race, dark race, sable race, with a scornful eye following, their color is a diabolic. Diabolic is crazy, okay? Diabolic is crazy, all right? Now, it gives this poem a dark undertone. Again, going back to Africa being referred to as pagan. Like, everything that has to do with being black, everything that has to do with being African, it was just dark. It was demonic. It was sable, you know? So, again, when most religious people think of pagan and think of demons, and this is kind of the energy that's being given in this poem. Now, tying this all in biblically, you do have groups of YT Christians who are highly racist who actually believe that black people are the curse of Cain. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the scripture in which they're getting this idea from, and then I'm going to tell you guys why they feel the way they feel. All right? Now, after Cain killed his brother Abel, God declared to Cain, now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. In response, Cain lamented, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. And God responded, not so. If anyone kills Cain, he will suffer vengeance 7 times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. Now, nowhere in that scripture does it say dark skin, but many believe that the mark on Cain was dark skin, and that God changed the color of Cain's skin to black in order to identify him. Again, that is purely interpretation based off of a group of people and their own feelings and ideologies towards another group of people. That was not in the Bible whatsoever. If you are a Bible follower, that is not true. And this belief led a lot of Christians, especially white Christians, to mistreat, mishandle, and it even gives them the idea that this is the reason why the transatlantic slave trade even happened. It's really ass backwards, if you ask me. I really did enjoy the poem. It was just 8 lines. It was really, really short, but again, just discerning through the passage, reading through the passage, utilizing and picking out different words and trying to understand why exactly did this poet choose these particular words for this storyline or for this saying. Like, what exactly were they trying to say? So we do see a lot of, you know, brainwashing due to post-colonialism, or like I said, maybe conforming to avoid harm. I don't know. Every story that I've heard of Africans coming to America, it was always some sort of fight back, especially when it was something individual like this. But I haven't read all of her poems to say that this is the energy that she was in, but just based off this one poem, that's kind of what I was getting. But again, due to brainwashing and whatever else you want to call it, so many different black people had different ideologies and ideas, and some of our ancestors really thought that slavery did save them. I actually see some modern Negroes today, my age, 27, who actually believe that slavery was good for black people because we know Jesus. That's literally the same exact energy that she gave. You know, slavery was good for us because we're no longer in Africa where they worship demons. It's so ass backwards. It goes to show that, you know, slavery really did affect her. We're actually going to do a breakdown of how I feel about the Willie Lynch letter as well. Is it real? Is it not real? I don't know yet. We're gonna get there. But if you guys enjoyed this video, if it triggered you a little bit, good. Follow me, subscribe, and let me trigger you just a little bit more. This was really fun. Again, I'm gonna do more of her poems because I want to see more into her energy and how she was, so I can give a greater idea on who this lady is or who this lady was, so that I can give. I don't want anybody getting mad at me because, again, this is just my thoughts. This is just how I feel, how I'm analyzing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am out of here.